Check two, check two. Check two, check two.
Who did the opening theme music?
All right. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 167 of This is the G Podcast. Yes, Tommy B's in the building. I'm not solo, but I got a special guest coming up in a few minutes. And just want to let y'all know it is Academy Awards Sunday, but I definitely won't be talking about the Academy Awards. They screwed us over so many years. I'm not going there. Syracuse Mike's got news. It's amazing. He even mentioned in the news, not in this cast, that Jim Boeheim was fired from Syracuse. So he's not a very happy Orangeman. So we did get some news, though. That's cool. And by the way, Georgetown fired Patrick Ewing. So Ewing is out. Georgia Tech needs a new coach. And Nate McMillan is available, y'all. So just want to let y'all know. Nate, there you go. 3 jobs. There you go. Happy. Be happy. Also, happy spring forward, y'all. Daylight savings time. It's late for church day. I know a lot of y'all were napping church day, skip church, don't go to work day, whatever you want to do. It's spring forward. And a good friend of mine, man, we share the brotherhood of the turntable. He is in the building. One half of Atlanta's legendary Earwax Records, man. I'm going to spend all show with him. Hopefully, you can hang out with me all show.
Oh, yeah.
You can hang. Okay, good. Earwax Records. Talib Shabazz is here. Y'all give it up for Talib in the building. Unlike some of these other folks, I say, "Hey, can you come on?" Well, I have constraints for third party. I'm like, I knew you were constraints. but hey, man, appreciate you, man. I'm gonna get that Atlanta perspective. As we stare at hip hop at 50, man, I appreciate you coming. Can you believe it, Talib, brother? I mean, we great.
Look, I never thought this was going to happen like this.
Who knew?
Man, it's funny because you think. I will say this. I think that the fact that we are part of the hip hop generation is what keeps us kind of youthful.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was about being out. It was about having fun. It was about, just looking at life from a different perspective. So, that's the only thing that's keeping me going, bro, because these whiskers don't stop.
They don't stop. They push through, man. The Grecian formula, whatever you got, just gave up. Hands up. Hey, but Talib, y'all, and we were talking, man. I didn't know this because we were in the same record pool together. $1 million at one point, and but you moved here in '86. I'm a lifer. I've been here, for a while. When you moved here in '86, man, where'd you go to school?
I went to Northside High School.
Oh, you went where the fine women were.
Well, there were some stars. There were some stars at Northside, definitely. But Mays was
Mays
spectacular.
Yes.
So
hey, let's stop and give it up for Mays. Mays is where the heartbreakers were.
Yeah, and then, but Southwest DeKalb wasn't too bad either, though.
Yeah, let's give it up.
Southwest DeKalb, got a couple things that went there.
Good.
But yeah, man, it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
What I loved about it was the fact that in hindsight, I was not only able to see the beginning of hip hop from the New York standpoint. But I was also able to see because my dad was in DC. So I
Hmm.
was going back and forth between New York and DC. So I not only caught the beginning of the New York hip hop movement, or not necessarily the beginning, but the wave of it, and I was able to see the beginning of the go-go phase, you
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
being in DC, was, EU, Trouble Funk, and Chuck Brown, maybe, and they were always doing shows at the Armory, but it was still in the beginning days of that. And
Yeah.
then to move to Atlanta in '86 and see how the hip hop movement kind of started here,
Hmm.
or the youth movement was here,
Right.
I feel like I've got a very unique perspective on things that I would have only got from being here, you
Good,
know.
good, good.
And, yeah.
Before we get deeper, man, because you moved here in 86, I was, I graduated high school 82, but
Okay, okay,
86 in college.
right.
And I was away for a while and I came back. And I was asking you about the name Jurgen because all the Jurgen parties were going on,
Right.
and for y'all, because it's interesting, Talib, because you don't see anything online. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. I got the wrong spelling. But let me ask
Mm,
you, for folks who say, damn, Jurgen,
mhm.
explain that Jurgen party. Was that going on when you were
It was,
moving
yeah.
here?
I caught the tail end, and that's
Okay.
the funny thing because Atlanta is such a college town. There were a lot of changes. There was always a changing of the guard.
Hmm.
Especially when it came to who was running things around campus. You move away from campus. Now, the next wave comes in. So it's kind of like, for the Jurgen parties, I caught the tail end of it.
Yeah,
You know,
but it was spectacular. Oh
I
my
mean, look, that's
God.
why I decided to never leave. Because graduating high school was one thing. It was like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
it was a mind-opening experience. But then,
Hmm.
as starting college,
Hmm.
86, 87 to 80, 87 to 88 was my freshman year in school. So it's like,
Yeah.
whoa. And then right after that, School Days came out and it was the butt parties.
Oh
So, you
man.
know,
Where'd you go to school? Did you go here? Were you here?
I started at DeVry,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and then transferred over to Georgia State.
Okay,
And
got you.
yeah, so I
Oh,
was at State from 90 and 91.
I got to ask you something, man. Because I was doing right around that time, doing mobile stuff. Because
Okay,
you and I talked
okay.
about the fact that Jurgen bought
Yeah.
AEE, which
Right.
if you're a DJ, Jurgen Jones was the guy we
Hmm.
talked about who did all the parties on the AU campus.
Right.
And he and Mark bought this DJ rental business.
Right. And that's what, yeah. So a lot of us would come
Yeah,
up through Jurgen and Mark because we knew that they had the stuff. You
they had
know,
the sound systems.
they had the system. So it was you got in with a couple of people, and then you get to Jurgen, and then you got you got the whole everything that you need from,
Yep.
whether you were doing Adams Park or
Hmm.
whether you were doing, Clark's Gym.
Yep. 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 Because I was doing parties at the time, man. At Emory, I was doing some
Okay.
Emory campus. I
Hmm.
know you remember this back in the day, right around late 80s.
Hmm.
Emory was doing parties, which was kind of unusual because
Very
weren't many
unusual.
black people on the campus, right?
Right.
And they had this big fight between DeVry, the frats, and you remember? Do you remember?
I remember.
And I
That
was
is crazy.
DJing.
I haven't
I
thought
was
about that in
DJing,
years.
man. And I just remember the salt shakers started flying, the pepper shakers started flying, my equipment started flying. And
Ooh,
when you mentioned DeVry, I said, damn, I bet he knows about
yep,
it. But there
yep.
were times, man, like you said, there were changing of the guards. Like growing up in
Mhm.
Atlanta, we always had these incidents. Like people
Yeah.
would remember the Kings Ridge, which was before your time. They used to
Mhm.
do parties at this apartment complex called Kings Ridge, and there was a stabbing there. That parties moved.
Right.
Then people started doing, like AU Center and then Freaknik.
Mhm. Right.
I know you remember the Freaknik
Oh
stuff that
yes.
was,
Oh yes.
definitely going on. And then of course, me doing the Emory parties because after that they didn't do any more parties on campus, not for the
Right.
frats, not in that way.
Right.
but there are always these incidents that happen at parties, and it's a totally different day today
Yeah.
in terms of incidents, and we'll get into that a little bit later, man. But it's good to see you, brother. And
Man, likewise,
you
man.
know, you are definitely we got a lot to talk about, man, because you're in that era. I call you like you are the tribe era, the tribe called Quest. I am.
That's a good way of looking at it because
See,
because that was the time. Like
yeah.
I started at Georgia State's radio station in August of '91,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we had a 4-hour rap show that we did over there on Sunday nights. That the one time it did get rated on Arbitron, we had like a 27 share.
Yeah, it was
You know what
amazing,
I
man.
mean? The show was like it was crazy. So that that golden era, time, the Tribe De La, Native
Oh,
Tonguesy kind of, it was, man, it was just special. That's
yeah,
about the
and see
best way to put it.
when you were when you were doing Georgia State, I was
Mhm.
doing V, so we were
Right,
just getting the
exactly,
mixed shows up
exactly.
on V, and we were hearing all that noise from you.
Mhm.
Like, damn, they doing, Brad, y'all never remember like Brad Davison, who used to do jive back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Brad, and of course Paris Johnson,
Paris
who
Johnson, yes,
would
sir.
always
That's
come.
right.
They would come to me and say, "Man, you need to be doing what Talib is doing because y'all ain't y'all
What?
ain't getting it over here, man. Y'all
Oh
ain't." But
man, that
yeah,
is
you were on the
crazy.
radar, man. You were on the
That
radar.
is
Because see, I came up in the era, and we're gonna go to the news and come back. But my era, like whereas you were that era, and I was
Mhm.
blending into that era.
Right.
I was the electro funk. I was the
Yeah.
craft work,
Right.
the Planet Rock.
Yeah.
So you were probably like the 105, 108, 112
Mhm.
BPM. I was the 125, 130, the
Yes.
yeet,
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
the
Exactly.
Jermaine Dupri,
Yes. Yes. And
130, yeah.
that's what made Atlanta. I know we'll talk. We're gonna touch on it a little
Oh
bit more,
yeah.
but man, that's what made Atlanta special. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yep.
That's what Atlanta's kind of sound, Atlanta's stamp on this thing was just that low end. That they wanted that bass. It was
One
all
of the
about
base,
that
man.
bass. So
Yeah. Yep.
if you being in at that time, that's what made Atlanta what it was. So when I came
Mhm.
down, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? It was like I got thrown right into that. And
Wow.
then, kind of we kind of ushered in the next wave together. But that electro funk, that come on, that was all. That was all I heard when I came down. I
That's
was
the
like,
thing.
yeah,
That Miami bass, all that was,
exactly.
that it had to be 125, 130. You
Yeah.
had the Phoenix Dance Club,
Oh boy. Oh
you
boy.
know, VIP, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. But let me
Yeah.
ask you though, from a sound standpoint, because I had of course relatives who came down, moved from New York to Atlanta,
Mhm.
and you were doing DJ, so you were into music.
Yeah.
Um, how did you? There were some brothers who couldn't handle the Atlanta vibe when they first. How did you get here and thrive? Because a lot of you know how it was, man. A lot of cats came to Atlanta from New York, and y'all, man,
Yeah,
this,
yeah, it's
y'all,
whack. I was the
yeah,
same way. I was the same way, Thomas.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Because
yeah,
when I came from New York, when I left New York, I was 16,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I was fortunate enough to really not just be not only to spend in New York, but I was going to spots like the Latin Quarters.
Mm,
I was, any party of like, the park jams up in the Bronx. We would travel from Queens in order to go there.
right.
So, I was out. I was seeing things,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
So when I came here, it was like it was more just trying to be a continuation of that. And I was definitely the arrogant New Yorker. I was like these country
I didn't
boys.
want to. I didn't want to say that,
Right, exactly.
but
I was all of that. But what
yeah,
happened was with me
yeah.
is I spent 1 year down here straight. I
Hmm.
did not return to New York for holidays, excuse me, or anything like
Hmm.
that. Once I
Right.
moved here in July of '86, I was
Hmm.
here,
Yeah.
and rode it out that full year. So, in Atlanta at that time, it was the high right, low lefts, haircuts,
Hmm.
The girls were rocking the isometrics and stuff, it was duck heads and Sebagos and Genera clothes, you know what I mean? So fashion was a certain way, and I'm like, this is all whack. Nobody in New York would ever do this, and blah, blah, blah. And when I went back to New York in July of 87, everything that I said was country, and that was whack, and they would never do it in New York. They were doing in New York.
Wow.
And they were acting like they invented it. So I was like, at that point, I realized that it really, Eric B. Rakim had already come out with the line, "It ain't where you're from, it's where you're at." And that was never more true at that point for me. So I kind of realized, okay. Plus, listen, I'm a musician. My mom was a dancer. My dad is a percussionist, African percussionist. Music has always been around me. So it's not a problem for me to just jump in for in any kind of music and thrive. It's just, I felt like after that first year, I was way more accepting of what Atlanta had to offer, as opposed to me just trying to be the arrogant one and bring down what I felt Atlanta needed.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Let's do this. Let's go ahead. We'll do news with Mike, and then we'll come back on the other side. Man, we got a lot to talk about. I got some definitely questions, man, that I have not asked you.
Okay.
Because we damn near did the show before the show when I talked to you this week. I'm like, save some for the podcast, man.
Right, definitely.
All right, let's go ahead and do news with Syracuse Mike. We'll come right back. Here we go.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the Week in News with Syracuse Mike.
Police are putting plans in place to try to prevent more violent protests at the construction site for Atlanta's new public safety training facility. Protesters have dubbed it Cop City. They don't want it built. Around 30 were arrested during the most recent protests. Felony state domestic terrorism charges have been filed against 23 individuals for allegedly hurling rocks, bricks, fireworks, and Molotov cocktails at police officers on Sunday.
This wasn't about a public safety training center. This was about anarchy, and this was about the attempt to destabilize.
That's Police Chief Darren Shearbaum.
During that attack on the officers, pieces of equipment and other items that were at the location for the construction of the public safety training center were damaged.
Sources tell us only 2 of those arrested are from Georgia. The Georgia Senate put an end to the latest effort to legalize sports betting in the state. Senate Bill 140 called for an amendment to the Georgia state constitution, which would have given Georgia voters the opportunity to approve a ballot referendum. But it's dead for now because there were not enough votes in the state Senate. Under the current legislation, 50% of the money would have funded education scholarships for certain students. 25% would go to fund rural health care, mental health, and economic development initiatives. The rest would go to other programs. 2 Americans kidnapped in Mexico are alive, and 2, unfortunately, are dead. The 2 that made it out alive are back in the U.S., along with the bodies of the 2 that were killed. The White House says they have reached out to the relatives of the survivors. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
I can confirm that U.S. officials are in touch with the families of the individuals.
One of the victims was injured, and a person who was found watching over them was reported to be in custody. The 2 survivors have been identified as Latavia McGee and Eric Williams. Shaid Woodard and Zindell Brown were found dead. According to several reports, the group traveled to Mexico for cosmetic surgery. That's not unusual for people seeking procedures at a lower cost. Mexican authorities now think the kidnappers may have mistaken the Americans for rival human traffickers. All of this happened in Mexico, not far from Brownsville, Texas, just across the Rio Grande. More than a dozen officers have been charged in connection to the January death of Tyree Nichols. A 7th officer has also been fired. About 20 additional hours of police video and audio will be released today, according to the city of Memphis. In sports, former Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley has been reinstated by the NFL after being suspended for gambling. He's now with Jacksonville, and Atlanta has decided not to pursue QB Lamar Jackson. The Justice Department has concluded that the Louisville Metro Police Department engaged in a pattern of using excessive force after a nearly 2-year review following the killing of Breonna Taylor. Attorney General Merrick Garland.
The report finds that LMPD uses excessive force, conducts searches based on invalid warrants, unlawfully executes warrants without knocking.
In addition to excessive force, the review found that officers use unjustified neck restraints, police dogs, and tasers. Officers are accused of routinely using racial slurs about and against black citizens, calling them monkeys, animal, and boy in some cases. There was also this quote from the report. For years, LMPD has practiced an aggressive style of policing that it deploys selectively, especially against black people, but also against vulnerable people throughout the city. By the way, the police department is 81% white. According to the DOJ, the city of Louisville has agreed to resolve the constitutional violations it found. Senate Republicans are pushing back on Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who was given access to around 41,000 hours of police and surveillance footage from the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. He's called the events mostly peaceful and said a small percentage of the rioters committed vandalism, referring to them as orderly and meek. GOP Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina called Carlson's claims BS. And by the way, that's our censored quote.
Appreciate it, Mike. And, by the way, we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks an attorney prosecutor coming in to kind of talk about what's going on with this whole Trump thing, give us some insight, as well as a journalist to talk about Fox News. And I'm here to tell you, I have my thoughts, but I'm not going to get into it on this show. I'm going to keep it happy. I want to have one show where my blood pressure can remain stable. So this will be it. But just a tragic and cautionary tale, man, to those who go to Mexico for these procedures, y'all need to really pay attention and be careful, man, because, I saw Man on Fire with Denzel and I, that tells me enough about the kind of kidnapping that goes on. So just, cautionary tale. Also, these job numbers, even though it was a great week, this bank failure with Silicon Valley is definitely something we need to be watching. The tech companies are shook. A lot of folks aren't saying things. All of a sudden, they've disappeared. Wells Fargo, out of the blues, having technical errors where people's checks are being held. So we need to really view this and determine where it's going in terms of our economy. So the feds, I know, are going to continue to raise interest rates because of inflation, but pay attention, close attention. Also, headlines on Memphis and Louisville confirming that the police aren't policing themselves well.
That was
Shit. Really?
Oh, really? I could never imagine.
So, I just don't, but I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, Merrick Garland, God bless you, brother. That's all I got to say. But let me say this, man. Daryl, on a positive note, man, Daryl Jazz Smith, Talib Shabazz, 1992, Midtown, created a haven, man, for fans of hip hop and house and just hard to find music. The legendary Earwax Records, man, unfortunately came. Well, y'all had a great run, ended in 2008.
Yeah. 15 years.
And 15 years, and the goal was to provide music that was hard to find, and they did that. Earwax is credited to be the first retailer to carry an extensive selection of hip hop and rap, and definitely house as well. And Earwax was also a gathering place for the public, DJs, artists, producers, promoters. They hosted media events, live performances, listening sessions. And if you've heard the names, just some of the names, like DJ Clever, DJ Toomp, Dallas Austin, Jermaine Dupri, Organized Noise Productions, so many more I could go into. You've heard this brother's name, Talib Shabazz. Talib, what's up, man? The one and only.
Brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's so good to be here with you too, Thomas. It's funny. It's like, even when I was getting started with the promotions and stuff like that, talking to you at V, you were always a very, very real straight shooter type. You know what I mean? Like when it came to how your job was, I love the fact that you were not going to necessarily jeopardize your job just for the sake of what an artist or promotions person was coming to you with.
But you know what, Talib? A lot of people don't understand the circumstances behind all that. And that's another podcast.
Okay.
Because when I took over, the fire was real. That's all I gotta say. FBI. I mean, there were a lot of things going on that a lot of folks didn't know about. And but I appreciate that, man. Definitely. Appreciate the kind words. But brother, the fire was real. it was a lot of fun though, man. I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of really good people, a lot of crazy people.
Yo, yeah.
Too. Not the crazy,
Yeah, that's for
had to
sure.
call security, you know. But
Man.
but it was all good, man. Even I remember there was a group of brothers. I forgot the house, man. They have this thing every Monday, and I
Mhm.
think Al Burrows was involved. Al was involved in it, and
Oh
some other
yes,
you know
yes,
other
yes. The
musicians.
music business. Oh my gosh, what was it called? Ah man, yes. When they, yeah,
But
they
you
called it
remember they would invite me out.
Yep,
I don't know if it was like the
Studio.
first Monday, and I'd always go
Yes.
out, and it was a pleasure, man, to just talk to them because they didn't have many, outlets. It wasn't like
Right.
today where we had digital.
Yeah.
So, it was always definitely always like just connecting with people and letting them know the process so that they could,
Hmm.
get involved with the process and get stuff going. But man,
Exactly.
we talk so much, man. And again, because I had to stop you, man, said let's hold it for the podcast. But
Hmm.
I asked you one big question, man, about how do you describe Atlanta's music scene?
Mm.
And you said it's like water. And I said, yo, what do you mean? Let's stop it right there. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so
You said it's like water.
yeah, it's when people ask me about Atlanta, I have two different comparisons. The first one is water because water is formless. You
Hmm.
know, water basically takes the shape of um, whatever vessel it's put in. So if you have, a water bottle, water takes the shape of the bottle. Um, it's kind of like that with Atlanta because Atlanta, when New York was the dominant sound, you saw people in Atlanta kind of developing a New York vibe.
Hmm.
When LA, started to take hold, 87, 88, people started sounding like Easy and NWA and these types of cats.
Hmm.
Um, Atlanta's always had, a big Miami influence with Uncle Luke and Uncle Al and, those Jam Pony, those kinds of guys, those cassettes, the Jam Pony cassettes were floating around Atlanta almost as long as the J Team was. So, you know, it's um, Atlanta, like I said, was kind of for a while there. Atlanta's overall sound was formless. The
Hmm.
one thing that kind of connected Atlanta sound in all these different forms was the fact that it was dropping. You had to have that bass, that low.
Yes.
It was all about that low end. So that's how guys like Tiba Rock, took hold, were able to take hold in Atlanta because Mantronic's production was all about the 808.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
so it's so in that sense, it is like I kind of compare it to water. The second way it's kind of compared to water is because of the waves that happen in Atlanta. You know, you'll find that the just like the tide. There are ebbs and flows in the sound and the way that people respond to music in Atlanta. So, as one style is kind of ebbing away, another style is coming in, and
Yes. Yeah.
and you kind of have to ride that new wave, so or you're gonna get left behind. So, and I think that's because Atlanta is predominantly it's a heavy transient town.
Yeah. Yep.
There are a lot of people, although there are a lot of people who were born and raised here and still live here and do things here. The fact that, Atlanta has now become this international city after the Olympics and, then, Freaknik did it for the black folks. And,
Hmm.
you look around Atlanta now and you'll see, that the Indonesian, Pakistani people have their own community,
Hmm.
Brazilian people have their own community in Atlanta. So now you see all these little pockets really popping up again. And again, it's kind of like, again, it's an ebb and flow, you know. Um,
Yeah.
the second way I kind of compare Atlanta musically is it's like a woman who's having a lot of sex. There's a lot of people that are interacting.
Okay. All
There's a
right.
lot of people that are interacting with Atlanta
Yeah.
musically,
Yeah.
um, and culturally.
Hmm.
But it doesn't. But she's not. She's probably she's had a great time with it. but it's like a woman that she still hasn't really had that orgasm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because I still think it's, even though a lot of attention is on Atlanta at this particular time, it's still not enough to really stimulate what Atlanta really has to offer.
And so,
You
you
know?
know what? It's interesting you say that, man, because we were also talking about who called themselves from Atlanta, because we were doing, again, you were doing your thing
Right,
on the independent side,
right,
and we were doing the big broadcast radio thing on my side,
right,
and you had people like who had been here, like Peebo,
mhm,
Bryson had
right.
been here. You had
Yeah,
Isaac
Furious
Hayes who
Steve.
had been here for a while, Gladys,
Yeah,
and the tide was changing to where when you got here, Keith Sweat had
right,
moved to Alpharetta, right?
right,
And then
exactly.
you had LA and Babyface moving
Correct.
here,
Bobby
uh,
Brown.
Bobby
Yeah,
Brown, all these cats. So when we would go on, on the radio, man, and the
mhm.
jocks would say, Atlanta's own, man, we could, the hotline, Peebo.
Yes, I remember hearing people go off,
So
man.
people went off. Like, how dare y'all call
Hey,
this?
this is, come
He
on.
ain't from here, babyface from Indianapolis. He ain't
Right, right.
So my point, you're absolutely right, man. There was this, you had, so I mean, and now Atlanta is more transient than it is native.
Yeah,
The transients have pretty much taken over. We still have
yeah,
natives here, but yeah, it's a transient city.
yeah.
You're absolutely right.
But
Yeah,
and
and
it's kind of a layered thing too,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
um, the folks who are really from Atlanta, and
Yeah,
their
yeah.
peoples are here,
Mhm.
they're on a different vibration altogether.
Yeah.
So you could be from New York, you've been here for 3 years, and you could say, I don't think I've ever met anybody from Atlanta, because to really get to Atlanta, you gotta change your vibration. If you're just
Yeah.
gonna vibrate, and I'm not saying one is a higher or lower thing, in
Mhm.
terms of like better or not better, but we look at frequencies. There's
Mhm.
somebody is gonna vibrate at 400 megahertz, and then somebody else is gonna vibrate at 500 megahertz.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but if you're not taking the time to really discover what Atlanta has to offer, then yeah, you can live your life and never really know anybody from here,
Yeah.
unless they're
So
starting to
true.
travel in those circles.
Yeah.
When I got here, it wasn't like that. You did
Yeah.
what Atlanta did.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
Atlanta was going to the teen clubs, graffitis and Mardi
Sharon
Gras and all that,
Showcase.
exactly, that's what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah.
We
So
didn't really have these options. We were trying to create these options
mhm.
just to have a little semblance of home, but
Yeah.
and that's kind of like what Earwax was.
Yeah.
Earwax it wasn't like we were like, yo, we're gonna do a New York style store.
Mhm.
It was like, yo, this is who we are. This is what we like. We're gonna stock what we like, and we're gonna learn everything else. And that's the reason why I think that Earwax got a lot of the respect that it did too, because our personal taste weren't necessarily involved in the decisions we were making for the store. You know, we were making decisions for the store for the betterment of our customers, to keep customers coming back. So it also taught me about a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't have gotten turned on to.
Yeah, yeah. Who were some of the artists, man? I mentioned a few
Mm.
of the DJs. If you when you think back early on into, I guess, heading toward 2008, who were some of the artists who you remember the most,
Oh
who
wow.
impacted what you guys were doing,
Um,
and vice versa, because
yeah.
you helped them. So who comes to
Well,
mind?
I think it's funny. David Banner would probably be one of the best examples of what really happens when you've got a record working with DJs before it goes to radio.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
the Like a Pimp song that he had with Little Flip
Hmm.
was strictly a 12-inch. There were no
Hmm.
CD singles, there were no cassette singles of this thing. He had some CDs pressed up, but that was a vinyl record that I know personally, I've gone through at least 250, 300 copies of that 12-inch,
Wow.
you know. Um, Gucci Mane is another one that was like that. When Icy came out,
Hmm.
You know, man, I went personally to Fat Cat Records and bought every 12-inch that they had to make sure that when DJs came into Earwax, we had that record in stock, because it was just one of those records that all the jocks had to have. And you know, um, not saying that it was or wasn't really my cup of tea
Mhm,
musically.
mhm.
I love the
Yeah.
record actually,
Hmm.
but it was, you know, when people thought Earwax, they would kind of at first think, "Oh, this is a New York thing," you know, and then they come in and they realize that, excuse
Hmm.
me, they
That's
come
a
in that they realize that we're pretty much universal. We're
yeah.
not, we're not, we're not that arrogant New Yorker at that point. You know what I
Now,
mean?
let me tell you, man. Before, I grew up on the swap in the
Okay,
swaps or close,
right.
East Point, that area, Greenbrier
Okay,
Mall.
okay,
So my record store before you guys opened was Peppermints. I don't know if
right.
you remember, like
Exactly. Yeah,
Peppermints in the
it was at the
mall,
mall.
and then they moved across the street. But
Hmm.
Peppermints was the big influence and where we got most of our 12 inches, if
Right.
12-inch records, if you weren't in a pool, man. But DJ wise, man, I remember because again, I was in radio doing the thing here, so we
Mhm.
had Jelly. We found Jelly. Jelly was doing his thing, I think, at Little 5 Points at one, selling tapes, selling
Yeah,
mixtapes.
yeah. At the
You
Five
you
Points
had
Flea
mentioned,
Market. That was the
yep,
Five Points
at
Flea Market.
the 5 Points Flea Market. You
Hmm.
had Nabs. Nabs was out doing his. I mean, Nabs was winning
Yeah,
what Techniques
yeah.
DJ of the Year awards.
Exactly, exactly. Doing battles and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, then you had, probably the older cats who were legends like Dad. I don't know if you remember DJ Daz Wright,
That's
who
right. Come on,
was at the
Daz,
Phoenix, man.
man. Daz and Smash were probably the best two-man team we've ever had in the nightclub in Atlanta.
Rest in
You
peace,
know,
man. Daz
Daz and Smash on the
was,
Friday night.
woo,
Come on, man.
woo,
There was nothing better.
dude.
That white boy was crazy. That
I
white,
did not know.
see,
Some,
and you know,
I look, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me tell you, man. I went
Yeah,
to the because I used to go. I was, I was just graduating, or basically they'd have, either you were it was 18 and up.
sure.
So on those nights, man, and we go there, we just be waiting for the bus from Spelman to get there
Mhm.
pretty much. So, and then all the brothers would leave when they say, everyone to the bus
Right,
from
right.
the
And
bus to
everybody,
Spelman is leaving. All the
right.
brothers be leaving. But my point is, it's like you had Daz. I mean, it's crazy how Daz was probably he was doing Dixie Dance Kings, which was a different
Yeah.
pool, but still the amount of records he crossed over because of his style. I mean, and I don't want to get into it technically, but
Yeah.
it was just crazy. You'd be hearing like the Haunted House of Rock track, and then here comes Safety Dance, and
Right.
he'd be mixing,
Right.
Men Without Hats. So and we on the floor packed,
Yes.
or that's the first place I really heard Yazoo
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
situation
Situation.
in,
Yes.
in the
Exactly.
mix.
Yeah.
So man, yeah, Daz Wright and Smash. What other cats? I mean, I mentioned Reggie Reg was at VIP,
Sure.
but what other cats were doing it, man, and kind of interacting with you?
Oh
You
man,
know,
really? You know,
anybody?
I'm telling you, Thomas. At one time, man, we had everybody. You
Mhm.
know, it's if we had started, if we could have taken Earwax's customer base and started a record pool,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It would have been, there would have
Oh,
been no other record pools, because it
yeah.
was that we were, you know how it goes in a pool, you don't get everything. You
Yeah.
know,
So
there are
true.
still certain joints that you had to buy, and
Yeah.
you know, even or had to rebuy because
Hmm.
your copy got scratched.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, we had everybody, man. What happened was, and it's funny because the DJ started really coming to us, you know, the working DJs.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
somebody like a DJ Scobie, who
Yeah.
was over at,
I knew
you know, Mr.
definitely.
V's.
Yep. Scobie was my guy. Yeah.
I mean, there were, shoot, man, DJ Herb, DJ, I mean, everybody, man. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can see faces, even guys who were from out of town. You know, we had a guy named DJ Cruz who would call in every week from Tennessee. He
Yeah.
lived
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Clarksville, and we would mail him, you know, the latest releases. DJ Sterl, another dude from Tennessee, from Nashville. We had cats from Miami who would call in and and start ordering records. All the guys from here, DJ JC, Applejack, anybody that was coming through the RAS
Hmm.
thing, Tommy Fix, the guy from
Yep,
V,
yep,
Mike
definitely Tommy
Rice,
Fix. Yep, yep,
um,
Mike.
DJ Chip, Big Daddy, Cowboy. I mean, all of these guys, even if they were, on the radio and getting service, would still come through. And that's what kind of made Earwax what it was in terms of the camaraderie.
Hmm.
Because it was not just, it became like a barbershop.
Yeah,
It wasn't just a place to come and get some music. That was the place where you got news and information,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and seeing how other DJs were responding to records. And I can't tell you, I mean, like any other time, how many times have you gone into a store, a record store, heard somebody asking about something specific, they played it, and now you're buying it as well?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It was that kind of network. You know what I mean? That's the best way I can really put it. Earwax was a network.
And
Um,
that's true because not only did we listen or kind of eavesdrop on
right,
the
right, right.
conversation that a guy was having about, hey, I'm looking for this record, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
We go to the clubs and look over in the booth. That's why a lot of guys started putting white labels on some of
Exactly,
their vinyl that
exactly.
they didn't want to disclose,
Right.
because we'd be looking and listening and then going to the stores running to grab it. So
Yeah,
yeah, it wasn't like Discovery now is YouTube or Discovery is TikTok or Discovery is
exactly,
digital. And,
exactly.
and speaking of digital, man, because moving forward, I know you guys shut down around 2008.
Yes.
How much I saw a comment. I was talking to somebody and they said, well, you should be glad vinyl's gone. You don't have to carry your crates anymore because the crates were
Mhm.
killing. But I will tell you, man, the feel of vinyl, as a DJ is still incredible. The sound of it
Yes,
versus an MP3 is
yes,
still, you
yes.
know, can't compare when you hear it.
Mhm.
But how did you guys compete? Because vinyl starting to make a comeback now. How did you compete then with digital when it started really hitting hard?
Mm. Well, I have to say that the way we kind of were able to ride the line for a long time was thanks to two DJs in particular. Um, One was a guy by the name of DJ Random, who was one of our in-house guys. He worked for the store, and DJ DC from Tag
Hmm.
Team.
Oh,
They were putting out mixtapes that basically played the entire record and kind
mhm.
of just blended towards the end.
Wow.
So we were able to have a balance. So if there was something that I couldn't get on vinyl through either direct service from from the manufacturer or white labels, we did have a lot of white labels, and that's how we started competing at first. But
Mhm.
once the digital revolution really started coming in, what helped us out was the fact that DC and Random were basically breaking all of these new acts and new songs on these mixtapes,
Wow.
and we were able to still so the guys who were hybrids like me, you know were able to. And this was like right really this was kind of right at the time where Atlanta was going through the snap music phase.
Okay.
So your
Okay.
D Pharrell's, the whole Bankhead, Shorty Low, Pool Palace, when that wave really started coming into Atlanta, that's when you noticed that all of these records weren't quite making it to 12-inch, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I
So
got
a
you.
lot of times cats were on the hybrid. I had a CD, a Vestax CD turntable that I could actually connect to my turntable, and I could
Mhm.
manipulate it like vinyl.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
a lot of people were doing that, and then once really 2008, we could have stayed open, but it was like, are we going to do this? And what if, of course, nobody has a time machine. Nobody's got
Yeah.
the crystal
Yeah.
ball. If
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
known that, really all we would have had to do was wait 10 years and vinyl would have had the great resurgence that it did, we probably could have held on to some more stuff. We probably could have stuck it out a little longer.
Yeah.
But it's just that, at that time, for who we were really catering to, I'll
Mhm.
tell you, CD turntables didn't really affect our bottom line
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Serato did.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
once Serato hit and Jazzy Jeff endorsed it,
Whew, Lord.
that was
And, you know, for those who aren't DJs, aren't I mean, Serato is a software
right.
that
Serato's a DJ software that
DJ
allows you
software.
to, it's a file manager. So all of your files
Mhm.
are kept with the computer, and now you can use, turntables or CDs or controllers in order to play directly from your computer.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's like you said, man, but the sound is just it ain't the same, you know.
No. No. MP3 versus vinyl. I ask anybody, man, compare the
Yeah.
two and the warmth of the vinyl. The only thing, man, is that them damn taking crates to a party.
But that gets me back
Unless you
to,
worked in a if you worked in a club, you were
right where you
cool.
could leave
But
them.
but if you had to take them, God bless you. Hey man, let's do this real quick. We normally do around this time we do tea. So
Okay.
for my podcasters, I just want to do some quick entertainment news list. And hang with me, man. I want to get your
Yeah,
thoughts on
yeah,
some
I'm
of this
here.
stuff.
I'm here.
So let me go ahead and do this.
Now then, children, it's time for tea.
It's tea time, y'all. Sipping the tea with Tanya B.
The Tanya B's off this week, but we got to do this, and Tanya B's traveling. Still a lot of blowback, man, from the Chris Rock Netflix special. And you know what's up, man? The grown women are pissed. I don't know. Did you see it? Did you see it? Did you?
I did. I actually watched
When
it.
the comments he made about dating younger women versus older women
Yeah.
seems to be that sensitive point to where women and of course some of the verbal attacks and calling Jada out her name,
Yeah.
but the black women reacted more to him saying what he said about older versus younger. You got any thoughts on that, man? That's what that's what I'm getting, hearing.
Well, see,
Bold enough.
the only thing I can
You ain't got to come back, but go ahead.
but I mean, no, the thing is that I think that in our culture we are really experiencing an ageism.
Mm,
Not just from hip hop. There's definitely ageism in hip hop. But
mhm.
I think it's really becoming a lot more prevalent in the world as a whole, or in our culture as a whole, and I think it's unfortunate. I understand where people are going with it,
Yeah.
and it does make more sense to stay within your age range
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But love is, we can't really help who we love.
Yeah. Yeah.
My thing is like, yo, man, just don't be so close to home. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole world out there, man. You gotta
Yeah.
expand your horizons a little bit. If you
Yeah, he
feel
was hard, man.
yeah,
It was definitely, and there's some women damn near to tears on TikTok and Instagram, making their statements. So, we'll see how that turns out. I mean, I'd mentioned this last week on the podcast. It's not over.
oh no,
It's
oh no,
and
that's
I had
something
hoped,
for a while.
yeah, I had hoped that they had buried the hatchet, but nah, it ain't over, considering there's more to come. I can see the
yeah.
red table talk coming soon. So it's coming.
I thought that
Also,
I thought that
yeah,
comment was crazy though. He was like, so
yeah.
what do you think?
Oh, it's coming, man. It's coming soon.
Oh boy.
Tyler Perry, Byron Allen, man, apparently in a bidding war for ownership of BET. And I don't know, man. A lot of folks, and I'm one of them, man. I hope that maybe they could develop some kind of partnership. Because like BET or not, BET is a curated. It's our culture. All that going back to Donnie Simpson, Video Soul, and all that, man, is part of culture, Black culture.
Right.
So I'm glad to see it go, come from the corporate world into the hands of Black ownership again. I just hope, it doesn't turn into a war to where, the culture gets damaged by these two brothers. Now, I think, Tyler and Byron aren't going to get, Byron's not that kind of cat, nor is
No,
Tyler.
no.
So
And I like
Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I was just saying, man, really, I love Byron Allen. I love the way that he's just kind of quietly been accumulating. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I really have to take my hat off to him. You know,
yeah.
the Perry thing, I'm just like, I would like to see something that's a little more mentally challenging than what I've been seeing
Yeah,
from Tyler. But
definitely not just written, produced, and directed by. Yeah,
right.
I hear
But
you.
but I mean, honestly, either way, it's good for the culture.
Yeah,
Because look, this is an institution that does need to be out of the controlling hands that it's in now, at least from, I mean, not totally, Viacom Paramount is always going to be a part of it because it's their thing. But at the
mm-hmm.
same time, for us to be able to still have an injection of direction,
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing for us.
Yeah, I agree. And Tiger Woods, man, is about to give another white woman a lot of money. I guess apparently he's being sued. But now this is a trip. Listening to the story, I don't really follow Tiger. Tiger lost me a while back. I'm happy to
California,
see a black golfer, but yeah, the Cablinasian thing kind of
yeah,
didn't sit
whatever.
well with me. And but he invited the lady, like, hey, come on, let's do this trip. You're gonna do a trip, pack your bags, come on. And when she left the house, hey, come to this meeting, they took her keys.
Took a key
Took her keys.
without a ticket.
Said, don't go back. You're done. So it was kind of shady, but she had an NDA, and now she wants the NDA dissolved,
Right.
and she wants $30 million for damages. And this is the house that Tiger lives in, as well as his kids. So we'll see how it goes. But Tiger needs to leave the Huddle House and Waffle House girls alone, man.
Please. And that's the real of it. I mean, even we forget that because people have money, that we think that they don't, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have class.
Yeah.
From what I heard in the news story, this is not the first time Tiger has tried to weasel out of just saying to a chick, "Hey, I'm not interested." You know what I mean? Like, yo, beat it. You know what I mean? Like, come on, you're Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
You can't tell a chick.
It's like, hey, we're going on a cruise. Come on, baby, come on. Hey, let's come to the conference room on the cruise. We got something to tell you. Oh, we got your keys.
Right. That is so weak. I'm just like, yo, bro, come on, man. Seriously, I'm Tiger Woods. Needs to be some balls.
Yeah, so true. And man, and I hope this doesn't go down, but the crew apparently for SNL, the tech crew, you deal with a lot of technical. It's part of what you do now. Saturday Night Live, apparently they're talking about going on strike. So we'll keep an ear out. That's big news if the Saturday Night Live crew decides they want to go on strike. So we'll keep an eye out on that. And apparently Lady Gaga, this is just announced that she's going to actually perform at the Oscars as we tape this Oscar Sunday. So it's going to be her and Rihanna, not together, but they'll be doing separate songs. At one point, she said she was not going to do it. So we'll see how it goes. And in Rochester, man, there's a third victim now who's died from the Glorilla concert stampede.
Oh, man.
35-year-old. Aisha Stevens. And again, this was apparently it happened at the end of the concert. Folks were exiting. There are rumors about gunfire and so on and so forth. So, it's a bad situation, man. And we've been as DJs, we've all been just that close, where, somebody, I remember somebody getting stabbed and splattering on my slip pads. Right. And or I talked about the thing at Emory where I had damaged equipment. Right. You got to really shut it down and slow it down. Sometimes you got to do that. So we'll talk, man. But one of the things I want to ask you, music today versus you talk about 86 when you came here, past probably the time that we were doing our thing. As full-fledged DJs, and now, and I don't want to sound like my parents, when I talk about a lot of the stuff that's going on, because I want to be open-minded. Hell, because I grew up on Prince.
Right.
And somebody mentioned, I don't know if you meant Tipper Gore putting labels on Prince albums,
Yes.
or just, that's what started the whole labeling,
Yeah.
on albums was Prince. So,
Yeah.
you think music right now is in control, man? Do you think, I sent you the article, Jadakiss had mentioned that the label should be responsible for lyrics, for a lot of the violent lyrics, man. What are your thoughts?
As much as I would love to say,
Because we got the answer.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Somebody has to be a grown up out here. You know what I mean? Everybody can't just say, "Oh, I'm hands off this thing," and hey, man, it's just that's what they did, and that's the way I want it. No, if your half of your roster is getting arrested, especially getting arrested around the time that royalty payments are due. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's really going on here? Is it really? So I agree with Jadakiss. I think that when you got so I used to say no. Honestly, I used to say that people should have the right to put out whatever they want to put out, no matter how crazy or insane it might be or how off the beaten path it is. And it's up to us to take care of our home and to let people know what is this, how are we going to distinguish between these? I've done the same thing with my boys. It's like, I hear them saying something stupid. Someone says so is sexing. I'm like, okay, let's stop. The word is not sexing. It's having sex. And trust me, 2 8-year-olds are not sexing in the closet at school. You know what I mean? They might be humping,
Yeah.
But again, it's the deprogramming that parents have to do so that the child is a little bit more discerning. We know and understand that now there is very little balance in the music in terms of conscious thought versus lower nature, and there are people, it's not just the artists who are perpetuating this. It is the record labels that are perpetuating it because that's what they're signing under the guise of, hey man, this is what's popular. If you want me, I want to make money. I'm investing my money, so I'm going to invest my money in what's popular. I get that. But at the same time, look, okay, well, if you're an artist, you want to sign the popular artist gets in trouble for what they're doing, then there needs to be some kind of responsibility on the side of the label. I think what's going on now is there is very little corporate checks and balances. There's very
I agree.
little. We as a general public don't necessarily have the checks and balances that we need on these corporations. And these corporations are basically doing whatever they want to do because at the end of the day, they have a responsibility to shareholders to return a profit. So, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we need regulations, but there has to be some kind of, without really infringing on the capitalist side of this, there has to be a way that we can still be exercise a little more heart, a little more thought placed in
a little bit more compassion, man.
Exactly.
If anything, because when we look at, like, right now, as we tape the show, the YSL case is going on, Young Thug. How do you think the Young Thug case is going to impact Atlanta if Thug goes down? How do you think it's going to impact the music scene?
Well, here's the thing. Fonnie Willis is the attorney,
Mhm.
Attorney General of Atlanta, has basically declared wars on gangs. I find it kind of crazy that the first gang she goes after is a gang that was started around music affiliation.
Yeah.
You know, when we've had Crips and Bloods in Atlanta for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for
Been going on
years,
for a long time.
you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
going after the Crips and the Bloods. You're not going after Gangsta Disciples. You're not going after these name brand gangs. You're going after YSL, a couple of rappers who, you know, have now, you know, gotten a little too big for their britches,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and they're thinking that they have certain liberties that they don't necessarily have.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I understand why, because if you start to take care of, you know, these little guys, these upstarts, you know, you
Yeah.
might have a better chance to attack some of the more established. But,
Mhm.
you know, at the same time, you know, these guys are doing it to themselves, man. You know, like
Yeah.
you can't pass a Percocet pill in open court and think that that's not going to affect how people are
Yeah.
looking at you. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So
Exactly.
true.
Like, what are we
Got the
talking
amen
about here?
corner back there, like, yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When this mother,
Yeah. I know what you mean, man.
somebody's
Yeah. Yeah.
mother is being contraband. Come on,
Yeah.
like, come on, man. There, you know, there's got to be. I think so. So to answer your question specifically, I
Hmm.
think if this case goes bad for, you know,
For
Thug,
Thug
and
and
yeah,
YSL. Yeah.
then yeah, it's going to start a sweep type of effect around all of these little, you know, the upstarts are going to get out of the way first, and then they'll probably really try and go after the more established.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
way, it's not going to be good for the scene because, you know, these guys, it's like, okay, I don't know if you remember the Fred Tokar's case.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember how it shut the clubs down for a long time.
Exactly,
Because
exactly.
you had the guy James Mason
Right,
who was involved in it. He owned all the
yeah,
clubs. So when
exactly.
Mason
So
went down, the clubs went down. Yeah.
and it took, I mean, you know, it didn't necessarily affect the outskirts. You know,
Hmm.
Bigelow's was still you know, you
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
messing with Bigelow's on Gresham Road, but in terms of the downtown scene, you
Oh, it
know,
was a ghost town, dude.
it was literally Buckhead. That's how things kind of started trickling back into Buckhead a little bit, and then they were like, "No, we're not doing that over here." So,
Hmm.
you know, it's gonna. I couldn't say how it's going to
Hmm.
affect the Atlanta scene. What I can definitely say is it's not going to be good. It's gonna be, you know, whatever happens, it's going to be a little more time to recover this time around. And I
Well,
don't know.
let me ask you, man, just from a sound standpoint, you know, the Atlanta sound has been around for a minute. When you look
Yeah.
at Future,
Mhm.
I don't want to, you know, I think trap gets overused because
Yeah.
music's kind of, I guess, evolving out of that.
Right.
But do you think it's time for a new, not necessarily a new sound? I mean, do you see?
Mm.
Okay, we talked about past, kind of going into the present. What's the future?
You know, I think I would love to say that I don't necessarily. Okay, let me back this up just a second. I don't
Hmm.
think that the overall sound of the music right now is a problem,
Okay,
even though it does not really lend to man, woman dancing on the floor.
right. It is
You
not a
know,
danceable sound
it's not a danceable sound.
because
Um,
house music is still
yes,
underground.
right,
You know,
exactly.
as is
So,
anything over 100 beats.
right.
I'm just joking. Anything over 105 beats.
It's not a right now, you know,
Yeah.
in the popular black music. Um,
Hmm.
so what I would love to see, uh, I don't necessarily know how it's going to happen, but at some point, somebody is going to be like, "Hey, man, you know what? I'm really tired of this overall theme." And
Hmm.
I think that what we would see first is kind of like um, a Dead Prez, bigger than hip hop kind of sound,
Okay.
where the
Okay.
sound is still kind of bouncy and in that groove, but you know there's being more added to the level of thought that goes
Mhm,
into
mhm.
this.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I mean, that's what I would love to see happening.
Well,
Because
let me say this. I'm gonna say
Mhm.
this because you've done promotions before,
Yeah.
and I can say this to you.
Hmm.
What I've found kind of uh, obvious to me
Hmm.
is a lot of the pop stations. You remember at one point you had the Juicy J, you had that whole sound was dominant on
Yeah.
pop.
Yes.
Now you can't even find when what's his name went crazy and little baby.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I'm sorry. The baby
Oh,
when
the
the
baby.
baby
The
did
baby.
when the baby did what he did and
Yeah.
got his music pulled.
Hmm.
You may have still Drake. I think Drake is still
Yes.
popular on
Yeah.
pop top 40.
Right.
But after that, a lot of the rappers who are kind of the baby like, you
Hmm.
don't see them getting wide success outside of hip hop radio. And
Right.
that's always a sign to me that the overall culture might be moving away. And then you start to see stuff like, what's his name, the white dude with the well, you had Post Malone. Who's the new
Right.
Post Malone?
Oh, G.
Uh,
What's his name?
Harlow,
Yeah, Jack Harlow. Jack
Jack
Harlow.
Harlow. When
Yeah.
you start to see Jack Harlow's and BTS's
Hmm.
started getting more Grammys, and really you don't see the hip hop artists on the Grammys anymore.
Well,
That says to me that people are looking at some of the maybe the shenanigans that are happening and saying, look, hey, I'm pulling away.
yeah.
So I hear
And
what you're
what's
saying.
funny too? What
What's
to
that?
even to piggyback on that, if you look at the way, like, if you go to a party right now,
Hmm.
the music when DJs start to switch the music now into faster tempos, away from the Jeezy Ti, Lil Baby, Little Dirk type of overall bounce, they're going to Afrobeat.
Yeah, Afro beats is big.
Afrobeat is now taking over that 92 beats per minute to maybe 105. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So it's
yeah, yeah,
like, obviously, and people love Afrobeat right now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm like, so if it's popular enough for, for Americans to listen to it, a sound that's coming from, 8,000 miles away,
Hmm.
then what makes people think that that same sound tempo wise would not work right now for American artists?
Yeah, so true.
Why are we pigeonholing ourselves? And that's
Yeah.
the thing. I think that, the as the TikTok revolution starts to happen a little bit more and it gaining even more traction into what the masses are listening to, or how music is being introduced, I
Mhm.
still think that I think that one of the things for the future is for the genres really to come ripping down. It's not
Mm.
going to be so much of a, this is a rap thing, this is a so and so thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more melding of styles and of genres, you know.
Yeah. That's a good point. Good point. Yeah, y'all. We are talking to the legendary Earwax. I don't know. You were DJ owner,
Yeah, a little bit of
Talib
everything.
Shabazz.
Yeah, yeah, cleaning toilets.
And yeah, appreciate you, man. And again, it was open from '92, and actually, what are we looking at
Well,
in
actually,
terms
in
of
'93, we
yeah
opened Jack.
'93? Okay.
Yeah, we opened Jack the Rapper Week in '93,
Yeah.
and
So we're looking at what it's what, 30 years.
yeah,
This is the
exactly.
30th anniversary.
30th anniversary this year.
Yeah, and the 15th anniversary of the 2008. So you
Right,
got well, one celebration. Uh,
right.
it's still a celebration.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just decided.
yes.
But hey, man, Talib, man, thank you so much, bro.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate you,
how
man.
do people connect? Do you care? Do you even want them to connect with you? You
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Because I'm still down. I got a couple things that are going on right now. I'm actually doing the podcast today from the from recording studio Unit C8. We're down here in
yeah,
College Park. It's the home of the vintage tunes. My man DJ Wiz. He's doing a lot of remix projects and stuff.
nice.
So we got that coming. We got bigger things happening with that this year. In terms of getting in touch with me, On Twitter, it's El Shabazz. Like Spanish, the Shabazz, EL,
Mm-hmm.
and my
Mm-hmm.
last name. On Instagram, it's El Shabazz7, and on
Cool.
Facebook, Talib Shabazz, DJ Talib Shabazz.
Yeah.
And they can find me everywhere.
Good stuff, man. I got to make sure I have that on the notes. If you're
Okay.
listening live, I'll have that on the podcast notes as well. And just a couple of things before we go. I just got to do these leftovers before. Don't go anywhere.
No, I'm
But
good.
man, our collective hearts, man, go out to the family of the Clark AU student Jatan Sterling, who was murdered in the parking lot over at the CAU Catholic Center on February 28th. Man, they had the prayer walk this week for him. I think in another prayer walk that occurred, actually the students were off, for
Yes,
just
yeah.
mental healing over at Clark AU, and the prayer walk was happening in Douglasville. Man, this is crazy for the two teens who were killed at the Sweet 16 party
Oh my gosh.
just a week ago. Samuel Moon and Ajane Hill, just to those families, man. You hate to hear that kind of thing going on, with the young people. On a positive note, man, I just want to say thanks to Black women, especially Women's History Month, doing it big in East Point, my hometown.
Right.
Shout out to council member Ward B at large Karen Renee for inviting me to their big cleanup, Ward B cleanup. I was out there. I wasn't cleaning up really, though, Talib. I was just taking
You
pictures,
put
get
the
some
time
time.
right. Yeah, you
I
put the
did pick,
time
I
in,
did
though.
I
Put some
did pick
time.
up a couple of bottles. That's my hometown. So, I was picking up, man, they be doing, I'm telling you, man, they doing these little short, what do you call them? The shorty bottles.
Yeah, the
Good
shot
Lord.
bottles. Yeah.
Yeah, the shot bites. Cut it out, y'all. But shout out to council member Renee and Ward B council member Dr. Josette Bailey held the cleanup, and Tanya Miller, who is the state representative, District 62, was there. Shout out to these towns, these areas of East Point, East Washington, East Washington, River Park, Jefferson Park, Colonial Hills, villages of East Point, all those who came out, man, and just
Frog
a
Hollow.
great event, man. Definitely, man. Because you're over at College Park, man.
That's right. The Frog Hollow. My mom used to live right there in Frog Hollow. So yeah.
Yes,
SWAT
dog.
representative.
That's what I'm saying, man. I was that was my stomping ground. Any final thoughts, man, before we get up out of here, Tully?
No, man. Like I said, really, I just want to thank you for having me on the show today. It's been a pleasure. I miss doing stuff like this, so I might just have to take a page from your playbook, Thomas, and start
Come on
doing
over, man.
it.
Don't do like Tyler. Don't do like Tyler Perry and Byron Allen. Just come on. Just come jump on, man. No, I'm just kidding, man. Do your thing. Hey, I got to support my brother, man. And again, I call that era, man. That was like the golden era, dog.
It was the golden era. It was.
That
was.
there people who lived it.
But that's the one thing I really want to say is that I'm pretty confident in the fact that it's time for a new renaissance, and we're right about there now, because as the squeeze comes on, things start to really develop and flourish, and our people are creative people, you know what I mean? So we use times like this to sharpen hopefully I'm hoping that folks use times like this to sharpen the steel.
Good stuff, man. Let me give you applause for that, bro. Shout out to your folks in the studio too, man. I hear them back there. They've been talking
DJ
like they're
Wiz.
trying to jump in. What up, DJ Wiz?
Yeah. There we go.
What up, Wiz? What it is, man?
Actually, we
appreciate
got a couple
y'all.
of things coming too, man. I don't know if anybody remembers the name Fresh Fest, but
man, yeah, absolutely.
That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. Do your homework, though. Right.
Hey, man, keep us posted, man. Again, sure. Give it up for the one and only Talib Shabazz, man. Yes. Legendary Earwax Records, promotions, DJ extraordinaire, man. Thank you so much. And again, you can find us, man. All of our contact when we tape every Sunday at 6 p.m. All of our contact information is on our social media, and I'll make sure I have that on the podcast notes. Everything is at This Is the G Podcast. So you can look us up on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. On Twitter, we're at This Is the G Pod. But again, I'll have all that in the podcast notes. Man, appreciate you again, bro. Shout out to College Park, man, because, I'm in the country now. I'm out in the country.
Road.
Let me tell you, Godby Road. Oh. I got some stories about Godby Road, but I'll leave it at that. But go ahead. but let me say this, man, because I'm in the country. I'm out here, the bridge, Henco, Henco.
Okay, yeah.
But bottom line is, I COVID wise, you kind of stayed put for a long time. Right. So going back into the city, man, after, you're out here with cows and horses, it's a different flavor. So, you go in and you come back. But, that's where the sounds are made, man. College Park is still, it's good to see College Park still thriving, East Point, all those folks who are doing it in Atlanta. Do it safe. I'm glad you're doing it in it because the studio business was under attack for a minute by knuckleheads who don't know how to behave in the studio. So I'm glad you guys are doing your thing and doing it the right way. So keep it up, Talib. No problem, bro. No problem. And come back, man.
Yeah, man.
When y'all get the stuff ready, man, come on back. We'll be here. Yeah, definitely. Or anytime. Yeah, anytime, man. Just come on back again. Thank you so much, Talib Shabazz.
Shouts out to Regia Shabazz as well. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Helping put this together.
Referred to as Gigi for reaching out, definitely, and finding you, because I get, what I get. See. You know what I get, Talib? Well, I have a third party agreement to where I cannot come on unless I receive. I'm like, get out of here. I know you win. But anyway, Talib, man, take care of yourself, bro. See you again soon. And with that, y'all, episode 167 is in the can. And we are out of here, y'all. Peace. Power to the people. Have a great week.